Hey, thanks for tuning into my podcast. This is Big Head on the Block, hosted by me, Tim Henderson, aka Big Head. It's me, Big Head, and we back on the block. New Year's Eve 2019, I'm fixing to give you some details of a situation where we had a barricaded suspect with hostages in the Mall City area in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Now, before I get into the details, I'm going to play you some news coverage that occurred that night.
We're now on the scene of a standoff in Lobdell. Police tell us a man has barricaded himself inside of a home. We're going to check in now with NBC Local 33's Kennedy Walker. She just got to the scene. Kennedy, what can you tell us?
Carly, very limited information right now at this time. I spoke to Baton Rouge Police's spokesperson, Don Capola, and he says that right now there is just a man that has barricaded himself inside of his apartment on Monet Drive. Police officers have just pushed us back away from the caution tape because they said that snipers have just arrived and they're getting ready to hopefully get that man outside of his apartment. We also know that he is believed to have felony charges against him, and that's why he is wanted by authorities. Right now, there's a couple SWAT trucks, and just like yesterday, if you guys remember, there was another situation like this yesterday, but they were fortunately able to get the man out of his home. Today, we just don't know. We're just sitting around and waiting to hear more information from authorities. But they did push us back and have told us that snipers have arrived, and they're waiting to get that man who is barricaded inside of his apartment.
Now, I want to give you a little synopsis to kind of give you an idea of what brought us to New Year's Eve 2019, this hostage situation in the Mall City area. So on December 22nd, there was a running gun battle in the Mall City area where multiple people fired shots at each other. Luckily, no one was hit, including either one of them. No innocent bystanders were hit, but a couple of vehicles were damaged in the crossfire. So with the known information that Officer Tiffany Smith documented for us in her report, her initial report and her offense report, she was able to develop suspects. She was able to develop information. She was able to determine who the vehicles belonged to that were hit in the crossfire. She did an outstanding job of locating shell casings, and any other information that she was able to obtain helped us immensely in our investigation. And let me explain why. Because no one was hit, the uniformed patrol officer would be the only one on scene doing the investigation. If a person would have been hit, they would have called major assaults out. If a person would have been killed in the incident, they would have called homicide out to handle the investigation. However, when no one's hit, the information is forwarded to a follow-up division, which is how I obtained information on this. I was involved in the Crime Gun Intelligence Center, and we were charged with developing information and solving cases involving non-fatal shootings. Now, being that I wasn't able to respond to the scene when it occurred, I had to brief her reports. I had to brief synopsises. I had to look into all the other evidentiary information we had from the shell casings and such, and had to develop a course of action and a strategy to try and solve this case. Well, fortunately for us, Officer Tiffany Smith did a really good job at documenting everything. She was able to give us enough information that put us 75% ahead of the game. We didn't have to figure out a whole lot. We did have to figure out some things. We were able to get some video surveillance from the area, so kudos to the people that had video surveillance of this actual shootout and multiple things that occurred leading up to the shootout. The video and her report gave us enough information that ultimately we made 2 arrests in this case. And it's important to note that even though nobody was hit in this incident, we have got to show these bad guys, these shooters, that we will follow up on all incidents and we will try to incarcerate them, because their intent was to kill. Their intent wasn't to actually just go out and shoot cars up. They were involved in an altercation. They both shot at each other knowingly, willingly, and in broad daylight. It was like 1:10 in the afternoon, right? There's a lot of people out in that particular area. There's a lot of kids that frequent the area. There's a lot of foot traffic in that area. So luckily, no one was hit, but this still needed the level of importance as far as an investigation goes to make sure that we eradicate these people and incarcerate these people that want to do violent harm in the form of shooting at each other. This was something that could have just been a normal fight, but it escalated into multiple people shooting multiple rounds at each other, putting a lot of innocent people in jeopardy, because y'all know as well as I do, there's a lot of apartments in that area, and those bullets will go right through those apartment walls. If somebody happened to be in the car, they could have been killed. So it's important that we send a message that these non-fatal shootings have to be given the same priority as all the other shootings. Now, let me take you back and give you a little insight on the investigation. So December 22nd, the incident occurred. Officer Tiffany Smith documented everything she could. The next day, December 23rd, myself and Detective Cook went out to the scene. We wanted to see where everything occurred, because if you see pictures and video, it doesn't give you the same precise understanding of the area or the crime scene, right? So we went out there, we did our observations. We were unable to develop any other information. So kudos to Tiffany Smith for doing her job and giving us a head start on this investigation. Eventually, we were able to get 2 suspects identified and a third one who was actually involved but not involved in the shooting process. So there were 3 people total in this incident. And what I could tell you about it is the 2 that shot at each other, one was actually on probation for pleading guilty to unauthorized entry of an inhabited dwelling, and the other shooter had pled guilty to a violent felony and had been given a 2-year sentence and placed on probation. So knowing their arrest record and their criminal history, it was clear that neither one of these guys was concerned about putting everybody else in jeopardy on that particular day when the initial shootout occurred in the Mall City area. So let's get to the investigative details now. So during my investigation, myself and Detective Cook, we were able to ascertain information that led us to the identity of both shooters. I was able to also do interviews and determine that both shooters did play an active role in shooting at each other on December 22nd. So I was able to obtain arrest warrants for both subjects, and the charges included aggravated criminal damage to property, illegal use of a weapon or dangerous instrumentality, as well as aggravated assault with a firearm and possession of a firearm by persons convicted of certain felonies. So the first arrest warrant that I got, Subject A, I got a couple days prior to the second one getting, which would be Subject B, right? So Subject A, we determined who he was. We got an arrest warrant. Detective Cook also got a search warrant for his residence. Now, we were able to determine that his residence was outside of the city limits of Baton Rouge. So what we had to do was call upon the East Baton Rouge Sheriff Department for assistance. So we contacted EBR. They sent a SWAT element out to help to make entry into the house and to serve the search warrant, which they did. They did a dynamic job. We were able to make entry. We were able to apprehend the suspect and serve the search warrant. Now, it should be noted that during the course of this search warrant, we were able to locate one of the weapons involved, and it was later ballistically matched to the weapon fired at the original scene on December 22nd. So kudos to EBR for having an elite SWAT team. Just like Baton Rouge City Police, it's always good to be able to call upon these professionals in situations where their expertise is needed. So now we're going to move on to Subject 2. Subject 2, we were able to obtain the arrest warrant, as I indicated earlier, for his arrest. So on New Year's Eve 2019, through investigative means, I was able to determine that he was at 686 Monet at an apartment complex. With that information, myself and additional resources from the Baton Rouge City Police Department responded, and we were going to try and effect the arrest warrant on the second subject, who from this point forward, I will refer to as Vegas. And as they say on Law and Order, to protect the innocent, this time we protecting the guilty. And I think he's currently incarcerated, so I'm not going to mention his name. So Vegas, if you will, we're on scene. We can't get any cooperation from Vegas. I won't get into the details of everything that was done and said, but I will say this. As we were attempting to effect this arrest warrant, the individual's family member came out. We wound up having to struggle and eventually tase this individual, who decided they wanted to be combative toward us when all we were trying to do was come to a peaceful resolution and get this guy taken into custody. So let's get back to Vegas. Now, Vegas decided that he was going to remain in the apartment. He was going to remain barricaded with multiple people that were inside with him. So at that point in time, this thing has escalated to a situation where we needed to secure a search warrant for Vegas, who was barricaded and in the residence with hostages. So at that point, we secured the search warrant. The next thing we did, we notified SWAT of the situation. We notified the hostage negotiators. A SWAT element was deployed, and eventually when they arrived, it was getting a little close to dark by then. So I think all this started around 3:00 in the afternoon, but it was definitely getting darker at the time. So the SWAT element arrived. Once the SWAT element's on scene, they take tactical command of the situation. So I met with the commanders of the SWAT division. I briefed them on everything that I knew, everything leading up to the moment that we were at. I indicated that we had a search warrant, we had an arrest warrant, and that these were felony charges. Now, at that particular time, the SWAT commander, or whoever the tactical incident commander was, made a decision to negotiate with hostage negotiators, and they were able to correspond with Vegas at some point in time throughout the next couple of hours. Well, as darkness fell on us, it was clear that Vegas was just going to be out here taunting everybody, and he wasn't going to surrender easy, right? I don't know that he was motivated to cause any harm to anybody that he had taken hostage, if you will. And the situation was the negotiators were talking to him. They would brief me from time to time, but I didn't really get involved with the dynamics of what they were doing, because they're elite, they're professional, they know what they're doing. You have a tactical commander, you have a negotiator who makes decisions, and then ultimately I think the hierarchy decides when tactical entry is made or not made. So I really wasn't too involved in that process. I was just kind of hanging around more than anything. Now, the waiting game is a hard game to play whenever you are worried about the whole situation. You're worried about the safety of the hostages. You're not really worried about Vegas, because you figure Vegas is in control of his own situation. You know, the SWAT element, if they do make tactical entry, his actions and the way he reacts to them is going to determine the outcome for him. So he's probably not the one in danger unless he puts himself in danger. And if he chooses to go that route, I can assure you that the SWAT team is more than capable of handling that situation. So I was more focused on, the people that were in there with him and their safety. As I'm talking, there's a big crowd that's forming outside Mall City, because Mall City always has big crowds when things go on. I happened to see this guy's kid, and I had arrested his kid, Vegas's kid, at one point in time. And I could see he's standing there with some other family members, and he's looking at me like he got trouble on his mind. So I asked him, I said, "Why are you looking at me like that?" He said, "Man, I'm mad. I'm mad at you for doing this to my dad." I said, "First of all, you put yourself in a situation where I had to be involved in your arrest, and now your dad put himself in a situation where he put himself in this situation, not me." So I told the guy, I said, "You know what, man? You can just take that little snarly look and go somewhere else. I'm not here to be your friend. Matter of fact, get behind the tape, get away from me, because in retrospect, I'm okay holding court in the middle of the street. If you got something you want to say to Big Head, go ahead and say it, because I'm gonna entertain you. But you just a little youngster, and you don't understand the dynamics of the life that you live in and the life that he's living. And also, just to take note, one of his brothers also had to arrest. So this isn't exclusive to the dad. It's the dad and two sons. So as we're out there, there's some other family members, and I'm pretty known in Baton Rouge. So a lot of people are coming up talking to me, and asking me what's going on. And basically I said, look, this dude put himself in this situation by choosing to engage in a firefight in the middle of the street, a shootout. Okay. So y'all can get here. Y'all can sit here and be mad all you want, and it's not going to affect me at all. What I'm worried about is why he won't let them hostages out. Maybe y'all should figure out a way to connect with him and get him to let them hostages go and surrender peacefully. But, they don't want to hear that. They just want to know why we focused on him. We focused on him because he is a shooter, and we are not going to tolerate violence. So as the evening drew on, as you heard in the newscast, they had deployed snipers out there. Now, this is a funny story. As I'm walking from point A to point B, I'm going around the backside where some of the snipers are. I see a sniper under some kind of concealment, so I'm not really sure who it is, but he did crack a joke on me. He said, "Big Head, why are you working so late on New Year's Eve?" And I said, "Well, let me give a little credit to Vegas up there because this all started when it was daylight, and it's pretty late now. It's I don't know, it's like 7 or 8 in the evening, and so he just cracked a joke, and of all things, this sniper just happens to be the current chief of police, T.J. Morris. So TJ, if you're out there, I appreciate you putting in the work late that evening because I know you had plans that were being disrupted. But like the rest of the SWAT element, he was professional. He knew he had a job to do, and the city called upon him, and he was there just like everybody else. Now, also, we have Uniform Patrol helping us with tactical situation on the perimeter and stuff. We had other elements within the Baton Rouge Police Department out there. So there was a large contingency of police, and there were probably in the neighborhood of 50 to 100 people out there just in the area. So as the evening progressed, I asked one of the snipers, did they see him? And he said, yeah, he taunts him in the window from time to time. But basically, they were just in observation mode. They were ready if they had to take a shot, but nothing rose to that level at this particular time of the evening. So as the evening drew on, the SWAT team decided that they were going to cut power to the area. So it was pitch black out there. I mean, it was really dark. Well, the SWAT team doesn't tell me anything about the negotiations at this point. I'm just kind of just hanging out just like everybody else. I'm not sure what's going on with the negotiators because I hadn't been briefed or given an update anytime soon. But eventually, I talked to one of the SWAT commanders, and they said that they're considering making entry. And I'm guessing this is because negotiations have stalled. And at some point in time, the tactical commander is going to make a decision. And I'm not at all aware of any decisions, how they make these decisions or anything. So I'm not even going to touch on that. I don't have that type of experience or knowledge to know when they make the decision, why they make the decision or anything. But know this, it's pitch black out there. It's New Year's Eve, and it's about 7:30 or 19:30 police time, right? So at this point in time, I'm standing out there and I'm talking to one of my good friends, and we're talking about the situation. I'm going over all the paperwork in my head, making sure, because of the gravity of the situation, you want to make sure that everything and every detail has been covered because, all this is going to be scrutinized at some point in time. It's going to have a debriefing and people are going to have questions. So you want to make sure that everything is in line and everything's in order. So I was very comfortable and confident that we had done an effective job up to that point. Now it's just in the hands of the SWAT team. Well, picture this. Late at night, all the lights are off. The SWAT team's out here. Then all of a sudden, you hear a bunch of loud noises. Now, I'm standing next to my friend, and let me tell you, my heart dropped because all I thought was that our SWAT team was involved in a shootout with this guy. I heard so many loud noises that it appears that they had some type of firefight going on. Now, you have to understand, this kind of caught everybody off guard because even though we knew that they may potentially make entry, we didn't know that they were going to make entry. So we're hearing boom, 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 multiple rounds or explosions, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, oh my God, man, please, I hope these hostages are safe, because I don't want to know that we put all this together and something happened to them. Well, a few minutes later, the commander came out from the SWAT team and he told me that the target had been apprehended. He told me that all the hostages were safe. And at that point, I had a sigh of relief because after all them explosions, I literally thought they were shooting it out with him. And I was like, man, we're going to have a bunch of dead people on our hands. And that's not something that any cop wants to have to deal with. From a human nature standpoint, you here to protect and serve. You don't want hostages to be harmed. Like when y'all are on scene, we have an added advantage because of the discipline, the training, and everything else. Now, I will say this, as I told Ricky Arnett on one of my previous podcasts, when the SWAT team's around, I always feel warm and fuzzy. I wasn't feeling warm and fuzzy that night, especially when I heard all them loud booms going off. And although I'm not actually sure, they probably had breaching charges and they probably had flashbangs that they were utilizing. But I don't know. It seemed like 10 or 12 explosions, or it actually sounded like rifle fire to me. So thank goodness everybody, like I said, was unharmed. But to put things in perspective, the police know that their job is inherently dangerous. And when this SWAT team makes entry, everything is unpredictable. They're highly trained, highly skilled, and they're ready for any occasion. But you don't want any of them to get hurt, injured, shot, or killed, right, in this incident. So between the police officers and the hostages, that's your primary focus, to make sure they're safe. And then lastly, you want to make sure that the suspect is safe. But guess what? he put himself in this situation. He dictated the outcome, whether he would be safe or not, right? If he chose to engage our officers, they would have engaged him. If he chose to shoot it out with him, they would have shot it out with him. But he did something that I considered very cowardly at the time. When SWAT attempted to make the arrest, he used in some capacity one of the children as a shield or something like that to avoid actually hands-on encounter with a SWAT team. So Vegas, that wasn't a good thing to do, bro. But let's chalk one up for the good guys. We win. The city of Baton Rouge is better off with both of these people incarcerated, and especially Vegas, because now we know Vegas has a propensity not only to commit violence, but to use others as hostages to further help him evade capture. So let's go back over everything real quick. We had a uniformed patrol officer, Tiffany Smith, respond. She did an initial investigation. You had myself and Detective Cook, who did a follow-up investigation, and I took lead detective in the situation. We had Kevin Hines, who was our supervisor, who assisted in the investigation. Then we utilized both the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's SWAT team and the Baton Rouge City Police SRT, Special Response Team, as well as our negotiators. And this is the kind of collaboration with multiple agencies and then entities within the same agency. This is how you do an investigation, and everybody understanding their role helps bring this to the conclusion that it came to, which was ultimately making both of these people, and specifically in the hostage situation, making Vegas pay for what he did. And what I want everybody listening to know is this collaborative effort led to both subjects pleading guilty, and both received substantial sentences for their involvement in the initial shootout and then ultimately this standoff with SRT where they had to make entry. And guess what? All this happened in such a timely manner. Everybody was able to make their New Year's Eve parties with the exception of me and one other officer who had to accompany me to the hospital so Vegas could be looked at for injuries sustained during his apprehension. And to note, they were minor injuries. He could have just manned up and went straight to the parish, but he wanted to be evaluated. So under the rules and regulations of Bureau PD, we were obligated to bring him to the hospital. So everybody did their job and they did it well. Now, as I end this podcast, I want to touch on one more topic. We have a new mayor taking over Baton Rouge, Sid Edwards. And to Sid, I want to say good luck. You have some talented men and women in the Baton Rouge City Police Department. You have some crime fighters there. You need to utilize their talents and understand that making Baton Rouge, and look, even though I don't live in Baton Rouge, I want everybody to understand this. I spent the better half of my adult life there making that place as good a place to live as could be, right? I did all I could to affect crime in a manner where we gave you the ability to drive around as safe as possible and have a good quality of life. So with the new administration, whatever decisions you make, talk to the people that actually know how to fight crime, utilize your resources within the Baton Rouge City Police Department, and make sure that y'all all are focusing on these non-fatal shootings as much as the shootings where people are killed or hit. Because if you combine the murders, the non-fatal shootings, and the ones where major assaults go out where people are actually struck but not killed, you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shootings. If you can do some type of intelligence-based policing and target these type of individuals, you can turn around the crime trends pretty quickly. You also have to do a little bit in regards to getting our youth to understand that they have got to put these weapons down, because as I was ending my career at Baton Rouge City Police, and I've kept up with some of the things since then, it's apparent that these younger people are still not only willing but capable of shooting these weapons and causing harm. We need to make sure they understand that the challenges they face in life and the challenges they face as being productive members of society can't be settled by shooting. Too many people are dying. Too many young people are dying. Too many innocent people are getting hit in these crossfires. So Baton Rouge City Police, I'm always pulling for you, and I hope that y'all can achieve an objective this year in 2025 of reducing crime trends. So good luck to everybody out there. Good luck to the new mayor, Sid Edwards. Good luck to the Baton Rouge Police Department. And of course, the East Baton Rouge Sheriff Department, which is always there to lend a helping hand. Sheriff Sid Gotro does a remarkable job in assisting anytime Baton Rouge needs anything. So Happy New Year. Everyone enjoy 2025. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Big Head on the Block. I'm Tim Henderson, the host. I look forward to dropping another podcast soon. Please give us any comments, likes, dislikes, or any topics y'all would like to discuss. Thank you.